What is ethical sourcing? Behind every product is a supply chain, and behind every supply chain are people. When organizations source without ethical standards, those people may face forced labor, poverty wages, or dangerous working conditions. Ethical sourcing is how organizations ensure that the way they buy is consistent with their values. In the next few minutes, we will explain what it means, how it works, and why it is now a business necessity. Let us get started. Let us define ethical sourcing and understand its relationship with ESG, human rights, and fair trade. Ethical sourcing ensures that every supplier in the chain meets standards for labor, environment, and human rights. Ethical sourcing starts with a commitment that every supplier, regardless of geography, must meet minimum standards for worker safety, fair wages, freedom of association, and prohibition of child and forced labor. Environmental responsibility in sourcing means evaluating suppliers on their carbon footprint, water usage, waste management, and chemical handling, ensuring that cost savings are not achieved by externalizing environmental costs. ESG integration in procurement means evaluating suppliers not just on price and quality, but on environmental performance, social responsibility, and governance practices, treating these as legitimate selection and disqualification criteria. A supplier code of conduct is the foundation document that communicates the organization's ethical standards to every supplier. Audit programs then verify compliance through on-site assessments, worker interviews, and documentation reviews. Fair trade principles go beyond audit compliance to actively supporting suppliers in building sustainable businesses. This includes paying fair prices, providing advance payments, and investing in community development programs in supplier communities. 4 foundational concepts define the ethical sourcing discipline. ESG criteria give organizations a structured lens for evaluating the non-financial performance of suppliers. Environmental factors include emissions and resource use. Social factors cover labor practices and community impact, and governance examines business ethics and transparency. The supplier code of conduct is the contract between a buyer and its supply chain on ethical standards. It covers labor rights, health and safety, environmental management, anti-corruption, and data protection. A social audit goes beyond documents and self-declarations. Trained auditors visit supplier facilities, observe working conditions, review payroll records, and conduct confidential interviews with workers to verify that stated standards are actually practiced. Modern slavery encompasses forced labor, human trafficking, debt bondage, and child labor. The UK Modern Slavery Act and similar legislation in other countries require organizations to report annually on the steps they take to eliminate it from their supply chains. Now let us walk through how ethical sourcing programs are designed and implemented in practice. Ethical sourcing operates through a cycle of standards, assessment, improvement, and transparency. The code of conduct translates the organization's values into specific, measurable requirements that every supplier must meet. It should be aligned to international standards such as the ILO conventions and the UN guiding principles on business and human rights. Supply chain mapping reveals who is actually supplying the organization, including multiple tiers of sub-suppliers. High-risk suppliers are typically identified by geography, industry sector, product category, and the nature of the production process. Social audits are conducted against recognized standards such as SMETA, South Australia 8000, or industry-specific codes. Finding and responding to audit nonconformances is the practical heart of the ethical sourcing program. Audit findings must lead to corrective action, not just disqualification. Supplier improvement plans set time-bound targets for addressing gaps, with buyers providing support, resources, and verification follow-up rather than simply cutting ties. Transparency is increasingly required by regulators and expected by consumers. Annual modern slavery statements, sustainability reports, and public disclosure of audit findings demonstrate accountability and build stakeholder confidence. Ethical sourcing programs follow a continuous cycle from standards definition through audit, improvement, and reporting. Clear, specific. Let us explore why ethical sourcing is simultaneously the right thing to do and a smart business decision. Ethical sourcing protects people, the planet, and the long-term viability of the business. Ethical sourcing is fundamentally about human dignity. Workers in global supply chains deserve safe workplaces, fair pay, and freedom from coercion. Organizations that source ethically are direct contributors to these basic standards of human welfare. Modern slavery legislation in the UK, Australia, Germany, and elsewhere creates legal obligations for large organizations to report on and take action against labor exploitation in their supply chains. Noncompliance carries significant legal and reputational consequences. Consumers, particularly younger demographics, increasingly choose brands that demonstrate ethical values. A credible ethical sourcing program is a meaningful differentiator that builds loyalty and justifies premium positioning. Suppliers who operate ethically are typically better managed, more financially stable, and more capable of delivering consistent quality. Ethical sourcing and supply chain resilience are more closely linked than many procurement teams realize. Let us compare the risks and outcomes for organizations that source without ethical standards versus those with a structured program. Without ethical sourcing standards, organizations risk enabling exploitation, facing regulatory sanctions, suffering brand damage from supply chain scandals, and losing access to markets that require ESG compliance. With a robust ethical sourcing program, organizations protect workers, meet regulatory requirements, build customer trust, and develop more resilient supplier relationships that deliver consistent long-term value. Let us bring together the essential points from our introduction to ethical sourcing. If you want to build a world-class ethical supply chain management program, our complete Udemy course covers supplier codes of conduct, social audit methodologies, ESG integration, and modern slavery compliance. Enroll today. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. See you in the next video.